Behind every empire stands not just a ruler, but the warriors who fight for him. While Napoleon Bonaparte is remembered as one of history's greatest military minds, his campaigns would have been impossible without the legendary generals who carried out his vision. In this episode of History in Under 15 Minutes, we spotlight three of Napoleon's most brilliant and loyal marshals: Louis-Nicolas Davout, Michel Ney, and Jean Lannes, men whose courage, discipline, and sacrifice shaped the rise and fall of the Napoleonic Empire. The imperial machine: why the marshals mattered. Napoleon's military genius is undeniable, but even the sharpest mind needs trusted hands to execute his plans. After declaring himself emperor in 1804, Napoleon created the title of Marshal of the Empire and appointed 26 of his top generals to this elite rank. These men became the backbone of the Grande Armée. Each marshal had a unique style. Some were tacticians, others ferocious warriors, and a few were both. Among this elite corps, Davout, Ney, and Lannes stood apart, not just for their battlefield success, but for their loyalty, leadership, and legacy. They weren't mere subordinates, they were Napoleon's sword, shield, and fire. Louis-Nicolas Davout. The Iron Marshal Davout was perhaps the most disciplined and effective of all Napoleon's marshals. Nicknamed the Iron Marshal for his unwavering precision and stern command, Davout was a man of strict integrity. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he was not known for flamboyance or political ambition. His sole devotion was to the art of war and to the emperor. Born into a noble family in Burgundy in 1770, Davout trained at the École Militaire and fought during the French Revolutionary Wars. He rose quickly through the ranks due to his competence and calm under pressure. He was deeply unpopular among other marshals. Many found him cold and rigid. But Napoleon admired his loyalty and attention to detail. Davout's defining moment came at the Battle of Auerstedt in 1806. While Napoleon faced the main Prussian force at Jena, Davout, with just 27,000 men, encountered a much larger Prussian army of over 60,000. Against all odds, Davout decisively defeated them in a masterful display of tactics and discipline. Napoleon, upon learning of the victory, was stunned. He reportedly exclaimed, "Davout has done wonders and deserves all praise." In later campaigns, including Wagram and the defense of Hamburg, Davout continued to prove his brilliance. He was one of the few marshals who never lost a major battle when in independent command. His forces were always among the best trained and most reliable. Even in the final days of the empire, during the 1815 campaign, Davout remained loyal. After Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo, Davout negotiated the emperor's surrender with dignity and honor. Michel Ney, the bravest of the brave. If Davout was Napoleon's shield, Michel Ney was his sword. A man of immense courage and charisma, Ney earned the nickname the bravest of the brave from the emperor himself. His courage on the battlefield was legendary, and his presence could rally troops in the darkest moments. Born in 1769 to a cooper in Sarre-Louis, Ney came from humble origins. He enlisted in the army and rose through the ranks due to his daring spirit and battlefield bravery. He was a hero of the Peninsular War, fought with distinction at Friedland, and played key roles in the Russian campaign and Leipzig. Perhaps Ney's most iconic moment came during the retreat from Moscow in 1812. As Napoleon's shattered army struggled through the snow and starvation of the Russian winter, Ney was given command of the rearguard. He held off relentless Russian attacks, organized desperate river crossings, and refused to abandon his men, even when completely surrounded. His courage during the retreat earned him undying respect, even from enemies. But Ney's story ends in tragedy. After Napoleon's first abdication in 1814, Ney swore loyalty to the restored Bourbon monarchy. Yet when Napoleon escaped from Elba and marched on Paris in 1815, Ney pledged to stop him, but soon defected back to the emperor's side. After Waterloo, Ney was arrested, charged with treason, and executed by firing squad. His last words? "Soldiers, when I give the order to fire, fire straight at my heart." Ney remains one of the most iconic figures of the Napoleonic era, both a hero and a cautionary tale of loyalty, politics, and fate. Jean Lannes, the emperor's brother in arms. If Davout was the strategist and Ney the warrior, Jean Lannes was the heart of Napoleon's inner circle. A man of immense bravery, tactical brilliance, and loyalty, Lannes was not just a marshal. He was Napoleon's closest friend and confidant. The emperor once said of him, "I found him a pygmy and left him a giant." Born in 1769, like Ney and Napoleon himself, Lannes came from a modest background. He joined the army during the Revolution and quickly distinguished himself for his fearlessness and quick thinking. His performance in Italy and Egypt caught Napoleon's eye, and a close bond formed between the two. Lannes was instrumental in many of Napoleon's early victories. At Marengo, 1800, he held the French left flank under immense pressure, buying Napoleon the time to organize a successful counterattack. At Austerlitz, he helped crush the Allied right wing with precise, devastating strikes. At Friedland, he led the vanguard with unmatched aggression. Unlike some marshals, Lannes wasn't interested in politics or wealth. He believed in merit, camaraderie, and honor. His troops admired him because he fought beside them, always in the thick of battle. Yet Lannes was also known for speaking his mind, even to Napoleon. He wasn't afraid to criticize strategy or question decisions. Their friendship was built on mutual respect, not blind obedience. Tragically, Lannes was mortally wounded at the Battle of Aspern-Essling in 1809. As he lay dying, Napoleon rushed to his side. The emperor wept openly, a rare display of emotion. He had lost not just a marshal, but a brother. Lannes's death was a turning point. Napoleon never truly replaced him, and many believe the emotional loss influenced the emperor's later, more reckless campaigns. Three titans, one empire together, Davout, Ney, and Lannes, represent more than just three of Napoleon's finest marshals. They embody the soul of the Grande Armée and the very essence of the Napoleonic age. Each man was a master in his own right, forged in the fires of the French Revolution and hardened by the relentless campaigns that swept across Europe. As individuals, they brought unique strengths to Napoleon's military machine. As a trio, they became indispensable pillars of his empire. Louis-Nicolas Davout, the Iron Marshal, symbolized discipline, calculation, and ruthless efficiency. His troops were drilled to perfection, and he tolerated no laxity or disobedience. He was the general you wanted when facing impossible odds, a man whose stoicism and strategic clarity could steady an army on the brink of collapse. He never lost a battle under his independent command, a rare feat among the emperor's marshals. Michel Ney, by contrast, was fire incarnate. Known as the bravest of the brave, he led from the front, sword drawn, red hair blazing in the smoke of cannon fire. His courage inspired thousands, his presence electrified the battlefield, and his defiance during the retreat from Moscow became legend. But bravery alone is not protection from fate, and Ney's ultimate loyalty to Napoleon would lead him to betrayal, trial, and execution. Then there was Jean Lannes, perhaps the most complex of the three. Fiercely brave yet emotionally grounded, Lannes was Napoleon's confidant, one of the few who could speak to the emperor as an equal. His tactical brilliance on the battlefield, especially at Marengo, Austerlitz, and Friedland, was matched only by his empathy for his men. He fought with a rare combination of aggression and conscience, and his death at Aspern-Essling marked not just the loss of a general, but the emotional crumbling of Napoleon's inner circle. Together, they represented strategy, courage, and loyalty, the trinity upon which Napoleon's empire was built. But their stories also expose a deeper truth, that no empire, no matter how glorious, can survive on strength alone. Each man, despite immense accomplishments, was ultimately brought down by the very forces they helped unleash: ambition, war, and the unforgiving march of history. They were not just Napoleon's marshals. They were symbols of an age of transformation, men who rose from obscurity to command the fate of nations, only to be swept away by the very tide they once led. Their legacy is not just in the battles they won, but in the enduring question they leave behind: what does greatness truly cost? Cliffhanger. The legacy of the marshals. After Napoleon's fall, the fate of his marshals diverged dramatically. Some, like Davout, maintained their dignity and loyalty to the end. Others, like Ney, were branded traitors and executed. A few sought exile or faded into quiet obscurity as the restored monarchies reasserted control. Yet, despite their differing ends, the legacy of Napoleon's marshals lived on. Their names are studied in military academies, written into war memorials, and remembered as exemplars of courage, leadership, and strategy under pressure. They were more than battlefield commanders. They were architects of an era, shaping the tides of history with their decisions, loyalties, and flaws. In Part 2, we'll meet more of these complex figures: Murat, the flamboyant cavalry king; Soult, the master organizer; and Berthier, Napoleon's indispensable chief of staff. As the empire expands, so does the weight on the shoulders of those tasked with holding it together. What becomes of a warrior when the glory fades and the guns fall silent?